Okay, we are live. Good evening from here. You're welcome to Opinion Sharers. My name is Paul, and tonight we are going to be talking about something that is on the world stage right now, and that is the issue of the crisis happening in Afghanistan. That's what we are going to be critically looking at. And we'll be comparing that and seeing maybe there's something that African countries can learn from it, especially because there are also issues of insurgency, terrorism, radical Islamic related issues springing up in several um geopolitical zones and locations across Africa. And so I have eminent personnel, people who are intelligent young people across the continent who would be doing justice to that with me this evening. So I think we should introduce ourselves. I think Nigeria is already happening to Michael, even though we are just starting. So I'll start the introduction with Perez. This is his first time. Perez, you're welcome to Opinion Sharers. It's a platform where we people like you and I gather to share our opinion. We don't censor your opinion here, So it's an avenue where we discuss politics, we discuss social issues, we discuss business, we discuss news, we discuss trending issues, both in Nigeria, Africa, and across the world. So you're welcome. Please do introduce yourself just in case some of our viewers will be meeting you for the first time. Thank you.
Okay, so good evening from Nigeria. So my name is Perez Adekunle. I am a Nigerian, obviously. I'm a graduate of Political Science and International Relations from Osun State University, and for years I've been a program assistant on radio programs in Ibadan. And basically, what I do is I try to connect myself with programs, with incidences, with issues where accountability, political discussions are being held. And that is why I am very, very happy to be here this evening. I hope that our discussions will transcend the political scenes of Afghanistan and go worldwide. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Perez. And then we'll go to someone that is not very new. And then, okay, let me go to uh, Sadat. Sadat first. And I'll come back to the face that is not so new. Sadat, please introduce yourself.
Hello, man.
I think his mic is mute.
You're muted. Uh,
Hello.
yes, I can hear
Can
you now.
everyone hear
Please.
me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much for this wonderful conversation that is going to be insightful to reflecting more of what lessons we get as African from what is happening in Afghanistan. Sadat Zaga Ziwa. I work for an organization called Ngabo Youth Friendly Services Center, and the word Ngabo in English means shield. So I work for that services center, and basically our major work is promoting the plight of the ghetto people by harnessing their potentials into productive and meaningful engagements that can contribute to the country's growth and development. And by that, we do a lot of providing a positive alternative to their livelihood to ensure that we see peaceful coexistence. And our major contribution is around SDG 16, and that is peace and strong institutions. So issues of peace, human rights, and and governance. So they are very critical in our backyard work. So thank you so much. I'm glad to be a part of this nice conversation that is shaping the continent.
Thank you very much, Sadat. I think I would love what you do. Maybe we'll talk about that later. Let's Tunde. It's been a while. Please introduce yourself.
Good evening, everybody from Nigeria. My name is Babatunde Emmanuel. Alade Okomo is my surname. It's good to be back here on Opinion Shares, and I want to be very grateful for the opportunity and for the invitation to be part of this conversation. Most importantly, at a point like this where the world has witnessed once again a kind of shake in the global peace. So I look forward to a robust conversation today, and I believe that we'll be able to draw wonderful and impactful conclusions and raise points, solutions, how Africa can be more peaceful, even as we are playing our game, both economically and politically within the global space. Having said that, I'm an environmentalist and I'm passionate about political geography. Today, I believe we will be able to raise something tangible for our audience. So, once again, it's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much. Then, Michael, you're next.
All right, good evening, everyone, and to the co-panelist, and Michael Olaogun by name, a Nigerian, a youth activist, and of course, a democracy fellow. So it's interesting to say that I've been part of certain peace move within the West African sub-region, and I'll consider it a privilege to share my thoughts on issues in Afghanistan in relation to what is happening. What is happening in Africa present. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you very much for sharing. Please mute yourself if you're not talking. That way we will not be interfering ourselves. Thank you. Now, we are talking about something that is, I think virtually all the major media platform that you tune into nowadays, especially media stations that cover international issues, you will see it, often there. What is happening? The pictures are not pretty at all. The videos are not. They are not encouraging. I saw some videos earlier today where kids, babies are being handed over the fence to the Americans, men of American soldier. I think, according to some of the Indian online media, they reported it as, parents just handing over their parents, I mean, their kids to escape what is happening or what might happen, what they fear could happen in Afghanistan. So I don't know. I'm not going to be the judge, but then everybody is entitled to their opinion. So I'm going to be asking us, first of all, to share what you make of what is currently happening in Afghanistan. And I think I will start with Tunde. Let's start with Tunde because he's a familiar face. And before we do that, please, there's something we would love for you to do, which is, if possible for you, please quickly grab the link on Facebook and share it, please. It is very important, such that we will use it to invite people to come and be a part of the discussion. People can drop their comment in the comment section. They can drop questions. They can actually contribute to it, and we'll read it out. We show it even on the screen. So please, if it is possible for you, go to the to Opinion Sharers platform on Facebook. We are live on Facebook. We are live on YouTube. We are live on Twitter. So any one of them, please do share the link and just share it and leave it. You never know, somebody might be interested in the discussion. So thank you for doing that for us. Now, Tunde, please let's have your view. What do you make when you hear of the Taliban, taking over power? in Afghanistan?
All right, I think it's quite an unfortunate incident that greeted us globally in almost about 1 week now. Obviously, as I was about preparing for this program, somebody just quickly asked me, said, what is our own concern as African discussing about Afghanistan? Well, we don't know. One thing that is very important and very crucial at this point in time is that the global community is like a village where which we are all knitted together. So which means that there's a kind of causal relationship between the global community, which what happens within a particular continent have a far-reaching effect, not only within that continent but to the entire world. So having said this, I feel as a person hearing for the first time the kind of setback, as I would like to call it, in Afghanistan about 6 days ago, as a serious setback for the entire global peace. And if you see the efforts that the American team and their allies have put in place in the last 20 years to make sure that the Afghanistan people, the Afghans, were able to have their own democratic government, of which people can have their voice, the women can have their freedom, and the children can have that platform to dream and to hope again. I think that to me is a bit they've have a bit setback in that area. So having said this, I feel as a person
Okay, I think Nigeria may have already started happening to Tunde. I suspect so. Okay, Michael, are you there? Michael.
Yeah,
Okay, Michael,
I'm
please
here.
take it
Yes,
away
I'm here.
from where he stopped, if you can.
All right, thank you. Judging, I mean, from what Tunde was trying to say, is just a global peace that is somewhat being threatened. And when we look at all of these, it has both religious, cultural, and of course political component, which is the hallmark of all. And this is dated back to when America tried to actually, shall I say, institutionalize or to make Afghanistan communities or states a very democratic one. And this effort has been there for almost 20 years with heavy, huge resources being spent to ensure that the state gets stabilized. And it record as it that at the time the Taliban's, which is regarded as a religious sect, was at the time almost in the affairs of that state. And after 20 years effort, both fierce efforts, gun duel, ballistic duel, and use of all weapons, we discovered that they eventually took charge of the very democratic society, which now is more like a threat to the world, because the American government, or rather the global community, sees the Taliban as terrorist organizations. And the fear now is the level of affiliation that may exist between the global terrorist group, the Al Qaeda, the Al Shabaab, the ISWAP, and of course, by extension, the Boko Haram that we have in Nigeria. And I think all of this is what has led us to put in this conversation forward to see how we are being affected. So thank you for this opportunity, Mr. Paul.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Tunde, you're back, right?
yes, I'm back.
Yeah, can you just
So
quickly finish your
before
thoughts?
the break, yes, before the break in the transmission, I was about saying that the incidents in Afghanistan is a setback for a global peace. And what I mean by that is that we think that as a global community, we are forging ahead in cohesion, in political tolerance, in religious, social tolerance, and all the likes. But of course, this also tells us again that there is no time in the calendar of the entire global system that we should feel that we have arrived. So the Taliban have proved the global community wrong, that there is no time that we can think that we are totally okay, that we can go to bed and sleep. And so it's setback for even human rights itself, because bringing Taliban back to disrupt an elected democratic government shows that some human rights will be violated, and it has been violated and continue to be violated, pending the time solution will be able to be found to that. And lastly, I will say that the women too, I think they are now living in a kind of state of fear, of which they don't know what may likely happen to them, because in any case, they are the bigger, both the women and the children, they are the bigger recipients of the brutality of these Taliban and these terrorists. So it's also a lesson, like Michael mentioned, it's a strong lesson there is for us as Nigerians, as Africans, because we also have splinter group of these Islamic extremists and terrorists in our continent, in forms of Al-Shabaab, in forms of Boko Haram, ISWAP, and the likes. So it's a setback. And of course, I believe that the United Nations and the other global body, they are putting things in place to make sure that this do not repeat itself, and we are able to tighten our house and put everything in order as soon as possible. So once again, I want to thank you for giving us the opportunity, and we believe that the conversation will continue to grow as we proceed.
Thank you very much, Tunde. Let's hear from Sadat. What do you make of it when you heard about the news, or maybe when you seen it on the TV? What was your thought? Please share with us.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hello?
I can hear you. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for the contribution. Hello?
Go ahead, please.
Hello?
Go ahead. We can hear you.
Okay. Thank you so much, everyone, for the contribution. To me, I think it's a critical moment that is redefining the peace landscape globally. And we need to just tease out ourselves to a number of questions and also unpack the causalities of this kind of takeover from the Taliban. When you look at the history of that country, it shows that the Taliban have been in power and have been fighting for power for over some time, and right from the Soviet Union. And you realize that to them, they believe so much in Islam, and their religion is affronted first before anything else. Yet, the modern day world compels us to appreciate the effects and incidence of gender mainstreaming, good governance. Yet to them, it is more of a kind of the other systems of governance. So to me, it is really bringing a new look into the world is peace landscape, whereby we just need to really understand what are those causalities. If America has been there for some time, coughing huge costs of living and everything to ensure that the country is stable, and today, as they are withdrawing, it is erupting. We need to question the methodologies that are used in creating peace, because at the end of the day, we need to see a sustainable peace, and that is rooted into a number of activities. So when you look at the Afghanistan question, it is a two-way thing, or it is a two-dimensional kind of situation where we need to progonize what has America done to ensure that they are creating peace? And at the same time, what are those unspoken causalities that the Taliban that have not been forefronted into the world's sphere of peace building? So to me, I feel like each time I watch TV and I'm seeing the innocent women and children suffering in Afghanistan, it brings me to really dig deeper and trying to know the different peace building approaches that have been used and have failed, and those that have not been used, how can we build them better to ensure that that threat alone, it does not trickle down to Africa? Because at the end of the day, we have issues of refugees, and at the end of the day, it is only Africa with ample landing space that can accommodate more of these refugees. Then it's only Africa that can, looks at what is happening in Taliban or in Afghanistan and cops it to, or domesticates it to the present day situations in these countries. So to me, I think we need to learn how to mitigate first, and also learn how to build everlasting or sustainable peace, and lastly also to have strategies that can prevent the reoccurrence of such kind of violence, because at the end of the day this is violence extremism. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Perez, you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Well,
The events that have happened in Afghanistan in the past few days has become a global worry, because, like one of the speakers earlier said, that some people might think like, and they can say like, oh, so what is the significance of what is happening in Afghanistan? How does it affect you in Nigeria? I've heard that so many times, and then it is for this reason that this opportunity, this platform seeks to educate people, to let them know that these actions, the event of the Taliban, the catapultation of their army, and so on, has far-reaching effect on the global world and for Africa especially. One thing we know is that Afghanistan has been a long time coming. I've told people in the past few days that these issues have been happening. It has been a long time coming. It was only a matter of when. I mean, when the Taliban will come back to power. Not to forget that this Afghanistan has a very long history of how different empires and nations have gone there and come out empty-handed. And so, even at that, not to forget that between 1996 and 2001, before the invasion of the American soldiers into Afghanistan, under the guise of looking for Osama bin Laden after the September 11 attacks, the Taliban were in power. And so these people they know the terrain, they know their people. And so after that, it was just a matter of when. And much has been said about 20 years of America's investment in Afghanistan, 20 years of investing, according to them, over $2 trillion into a country, building a system which to them they think would work. And so the fact that Americans were ready to pull out shows one thing, and which should be a lesson for the whole world. The first thing I want us to know is that America wants to develop themselves, and they do not want to be the world police that everybody used to call them before. And until African nations like Nigeria begin to learn lessons that we must move away from the state of total dependency on the West, because the West are very good at something. They will never help you without far-reaching interests in either your resources, your geographical location, in your leadership, or anything. And not to forget that they will also not leave you the same way they met you. We have examples like in Africa. Look at Libya. When the United Nations allowed for the invasion of Libya under the guise to go and stabilize things. Look at them today. That place has turned to the hub of human trafficking in the world. And so what happened in Afghanistan is a far-reaching lesson to everybody in the world. Not forgetting also that African nations, especially those on the way on the hill of the Sahara, those on the Sahel, Nigeria, Libya, Mali, Democratic Republic of Congo, name them, Cameroon. Crises are going all over. And this kind of thing that happened in Afghanistan will motivate local terrorists. It will give them self-motivation that, oh, this thing has happened somewhere, then it can also happen. And that is where leadership comes in to find African-made solutions to their problem. Because that was one of the bane of the events that happened in Afghanistan. Imagine that we have data that have shown us that the Afghanistan's number about 75,000, and that the Afghan army now have over 300,000 soldiers. And so what happened? And these Talibans were advancing gradually from town to town, city to city. They did not do it in one day. And so what happened to the over 300,000 soldiers which they had? What happened to the over $2 trillion investment that the Americans are purported to have done there? What happened to leadership? Does it mean that for over 20 years, no system was built, no stable system was built that could have warded off these things? Not to forget that the Afghanistans knew, they had the knowledge that the Taliban existed because they've been there before. Not to forget that the Indians, the Pakistans have been taking sides in this conflict. And so what are the lessons? We must begin to find solutions to our problems ourselves. The West will only come to our aid when their interests are to be met here. And that is where leadership comes in. Look at what is happening in Nigeria today. Boko Haram. There are different titles that are being given to... Yes.
Wait first. Let me stop you. Thank you very much. I want you to... we will talk about some of these issues that you're talking about. It's
Okay.
like you're already, running ahead of me. So,
okay.
Permit me to stop you. Thank you.
Okay.
Now, when I think it was Michael or someone that was talking, I quickly jot something down. You see, what I observe is that, and maybe a lot of us young people or younger people are still struggling with it, and that is the ideology of religious ideology versus modern democracy. Because this is something that I see that seem to be peculiar to most of these Islamic terrorist organizations. People, as I'm a social worker, all right, and a few sometimes ago, recently, I was talking in a class. I threw a question to my professor, and I told him, I said, cultural socialization seem to be far more powerful than our modern day education in terms of influencing people. And he 100% agreed. Because in most cases, you find out that you keep teaching people, this is how to do in the 21st century. This is how you expect them to behave in the 21st century. But look at these Afghanistan guys. And from what I heard from the Prime Minister of Pakistan today during an interview by a U.S. television, he described the Taliban as a tribe. As a tribe that is also that also have a member. There's also in fact a reasonable number of that tribe in his country, in Pakistan. Because I think US was accusing Pakistan of sending in local troops or local terrorists or whatever you call them, to come and assist the Taliban in gaining ground. So what he was saying is that this is a tribe, just like you have, and I'm specific about this to Nigeria. When you look at the Fulani herdsmen, for instance, in Nigeria, I've seen governors coming to TV, and this does not have anything to do peculiar that is peculiar to the Fulani tribe. But I'm just saying that I've seen governors in Nigeria coming to TV to say all the Fulani tribes in Africa, that they are literally Nigerians. So which means if there is trouble, these people can ask for reinforce. Tunde, do you see it as such? Let's bring it to local now. Can you
Of
hear me?
course, I think yes, I think in the introduction we've been able to establish that we are all web together, we are all connected together globally. When you take, for instance, now in Nigeria, we have the likes of the Fulani herdsmen. Initially, when these people started, it didn't start with the Fulani herdsmen. It started with the Boko Haram, and Boko Haram started on the guise of religion, and they were like religious group trying to say we don't want a Western culture, we don't want a Western education, we don't want anything Western infiltration into Nigeria. And from there, it grew into you start having some splinter groups, the Fulani herdsmen attacking the farmers. And now today in Nigeria, we have so many splinter groups that either agitate in form of agitation for maybe secession or agitation for this or that. All of them, though you may not say all of them in totality, they are terrorists, but in one way or the other, they are I would say the effect of their actions is brutally having some negative impact on people and the economy of the nation. Now bringing it back home to the issue of these people in Afghanistan claiming to be, I mean, the other president that you mentioned, trying to take side for the Taliban, that they were also a tribe, a very big tribe in Afghanistan, and for what they have done, they are only trying to fight for the right of their people. Yes, we've seen in time past within this country called Nigeria that we've seen some of our leaders also claiming that the Fulani people, in fact, some have even claimed in time past that they owns Nigeria, that the Fulanis are the owner of Nigeria and this and that, they are coming to take over Nigeria. And when some part of the country are trying to say that these are terrorists, even as we speak now, Boko Haram have not been declared as a terrorist organization in Nigeria, whereas we have the likes of IPOB being declared by the federal government of Nigeria as a terrorist organization. And whether you like it or not, I think the United States have once declared Boko Haram as one of the terrorist organizations, one of the deadliest terrorist organizations in the world. And on a daily basis, these people cause mayhem on people, on the children, on students that are learning freely in classrooms. And when you look at every part of Nigeria now, education is almost, going to school is almost like a risk of life. So what are we saying in the whole of this is that whether be it a tribe or a subset of a nation, terrorism have nothing to do with tribe. Terror act is terror act, and it should be seen as such. And in any case, I think as we continue the conversation, I think we will have to talk about one or two things about the causes of these things and what government should be able to put in place to foster these things. Because for me, I feel that it is the fault of the government. They've not been able to put in place the necessary things they should put in place, because they are the leader in whatsoever area that we want to be looking at. So when the leadership fails, other splinter groups will come up with their own idea. They say where there is no law, there is no sin. And I want to also say that where there is no sin, there is no law. So the issue is that whether be it a tribe, the major tribe or the minor tribe, terrorism is terrorism. It's against humanity, and it should be seen as such and it should be treated as such. So the global community have to work very smart, most especially the African community. We have to work very smart to make sure that we are able to bring these people to halt. Because when I was reading about the leader of Al Qaeda, they said the guy was expelled from Sudan. And Sudan is not in America, is not in Asia. Sudan is in Africa. And so these people have a way they network themselves on the guise of religion and all other things, or even providing incentives for people. So there is no way we want to look at it than terrorism is terrorism and it should be treated as such.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to ask this one specifically to Sadat. And the question is this. If you look at some of the interviews that I've seen, a lot of media personalities are saying that this current Afghanistan, they want media presence. They want to position themselves as somewhat milder than what people know them to be, you know. Even though I think there has not been one particular leader among them, but there has been several people speaking. Some people say, I've heard some people said there may be possibility for democracy in the future, while some
I don't
people
know
are
whether it's
saying,
my network, but I'm not getting you well.
uh, okay, can anyone else hear me? Michael, can you hear me? Am I audible to you?
You're audible enough. I can hear you loud and clear.
Expressly, you're very clear.
Okay, so Sadat, I think maybe it's your network. Hello, Sadat, are you there? I don't think Sadat is there. Okay, let me throw the question to Perez, since especially since Perez is a political scientist. Do you see this current Taliban? Do you see them being a Democrat or being a more moderate Taliban than the one that we've heard? People like you may have studied in history or in political science.
Yeah, I think presently the world is watching them with keen interest. Can you hear me? Okay. I think the world is watching them with keen interest. The world wants to see what comes out of the negotiations, the government they want to form, and so on. But be that as it may, I think the world, while the world is watching, the world needs to be careful too, especially the Afghanistans. These guys have had history of very gross abuse of human rights, and for that, they've been hated by the Afghanistans. And I think all they are trying to do, if you look at it strategically, is they want to gain a ground into the hearts of the Afghanistans. Because why would people be running away? People only run away from evil people. They are all Afghanistans. Forget whether they are Talibans or they are moderate Talibans or they are government apologists or whatever. They are all Afghanistans. So why have the people be running away? To the extent that mothers were throwing their children over a barbed wire at the airport, telling the soldiers to just take them away, just take my children away. Look at the young chap that died, that fell from the plane. And so there's something to fear. And that name itself, Taliban, is something to fear. So I do not see what they are bringing to the table that will be moderate. I think they are just trying. Now there have been news also that they've been going from door to door, arresting people who have had allegiance to the West, to NATO, and so on. You've read the news. And so there are conflicting news coming out. I think what they want to do is this. It is a strategy. Do not forget that the world as we have it is bipolar. There's a distinction, there's a big tussle between world powers, between the United States of America, between China, between Russia. And so what the Taliban wants to do is that they've had allegiances before. There were people who were apologetic to their cause, who had gone, who had left them. For example, the UAE supported the Taliban at the time. They no longer support them. Russia supported Taliban, although they've denied it vehemently. But United Nations and the United States, the UK and NATO forces have said the Russians are backing them. Do you understand? And then we have Pakistan on one hand, which has been the breeding ground for the Taliban. And then on the other side, we have the US, the UK, NATO, and India. Indians and them, do you understand? And so what they're trying to do is that they want to form a kind of they want to gain a ground They want to do as if they've come, like they are not democratic. Do you understand? And so they want the outside world to support them, because do not forget that no matter the type of domestic policy you want to put down, the world is now a global village. You must get support from the West, you must get support from Asia, from the Middle East, and so on. And so that is what they need. I want to assure you that once they get the backing that they need, these guys, like we used to say in Nigeria, when these guys, they are disguising, they will go back to who they were. 1996, a very dark history in the life of the Afghanistans. And so they cannot erase that in just one day. And so I get you very well. They cannot erase that in one day. I think they are disguising. With time, they will come out with their true color, and then you know the Taliban's who they really are.
Hmm. Thank you very much. Sadat, are you there now?
I'm
Okay.
here.
All right. Thank you. So the question I want to ask you now is, you were talking about lessons that we can learn in the failure of whatever it is that America may have done. So as Africans, looking at Al Shabaab, looking at other groups such as Boko Haram in Nigeria, in fact, there are so many names they call them. People are disappearing up and down, especially up north, and people they will say it is bandit, and this is something that has been continuous. It doesn't make sense to me anymore that they are calling them bandit. But well, who am I, or who are the people like us to call them anything? So we are compelled to call them whatever the government or the major media houses call them. So what lessons do you think we can learn specifically as Africans?
Thank you so much, Paul. I think one of the critical things we need to harness is one, appreciating the modern day terrorism. Though, however much people call it bandits, pilots, like that, but we need to appreciate the modern day terrorism. Terrorism is taking different shapes in the world, not only what the Taliban are doing, but also what is happening in Somalia, what is happening in Nigeria. You look at scenarios in Uganda where people are being killed in different styles and forms. When you look at what is happening in the other parts of Africa, that is terrorism. Some individuals feel that they are super beings to in the expense of the other. We are going to see a lot of bloodsheds because some people believe that they are supposed to live and others shouldn't live. So that's what is happening in Afghanistan. So I think one of the lessons we need to unpack and appreciate is one, take a look at the examples of Libya. This is not just uh, America coughing costs to ensure that it builds institutions and systems in a certain country, but it is rooted back to the inner feelings of individuals and hate towards the American people. Today, as we speak, mention but a few different countries in the world that America has invaded that have peace. So you look at the different countries and also mention the countries that America has not been there that still don't have peace. They are there, but there is a chain of connection. We are all interconnected. So when you look at what the Taliban are doing, you realize that it is the same thing that is happening in Nigeria by the Boko Harams. And there is that interconnection whereby these people share and compare notes. At the same time, it happens in Somalia. It happens in Kenya. So, and we just need to track what are those mediums of communication these individuals use. One, we need to learn to and appreciate how to counter the narrative. And what is that narrative these people are trading across? And what unifies them as the entire group? because the naming is different, but the actions show that this is one group all over the world. So what narrative do they use to lure very many people into their support? If we can understand that as Africa, we can be able to counter. Then too, do we have an independent body that discusses issues of Africa for Africa? Not like the AU. Our AU is a dormant organization that has no budget lines, that can't commit resources to ensuring that they do work around the continent. So the AU also writes proposals like the way we do in civil society. So guess what happens when you write a proposal? It means you're going to dance on the tunes of the money holder. So we need to have that independent and have a deliberate effort as African countries to share resources to ensure that we counter these narratives and activities from these different groups. Then too, we need also to diagnose and understand what are those groups' major mandates and those inner unspoken interests. For example, when you look at Boko Haram, in Nigeria, for them, they believe so much into them being the only race in Nigeria. So what can we do to show to them that we can coexist regardless of the differences, but peace is key? What are those conversations? What are those conversations we normally have breed into? For example, when you look at the South Sudan, each time they sit into conversations, before you know it, a war is erupting. Before you know it, a relapse. So what conversations do we have to let people appreciate that, okay, we need to coexist? And then when we are forming those conversations, are we gender sensitive? How many people, how many different groups of interest do come on board? Because this kind of terrorism ceases to be a one-sided group discussion to a whole of countries conversation. So do we bring the women on board? Do we bring the youth on board? Do we bring the elder on board? And do we bring every key player, stakeholder on board? So what is missing today in Taliban, in Afghanistan, is that when America wanted to create harmony, it only targeted a few groups of individuals, not the entire country to sit on a stable peace and durable peace. So it only got in a group of people. And today it is that very group of people suffering now, running away from the country because they fear threats from the other side of the country. So I would think that part of the lessons as Africans, we need also to learn how to unpack our narrative. How do we change the narrative for Africa? How do we learn to get organized and to fund and support our own initiatives? How do we forge conversations around peace building across the continent? And at the same time, how do we appreciate everyone's interest and we have mutual agreements and understanding to ensure that we all fit into one basket as Africa? How do we then work out the border issues? How do we create common markets, common benefits? If we're told we can't have common benefits, that means peace building is a fallacy in Africa. It means what is happening in Afghanistan is going to happen in here. Because remember, the Taliban work in tandem and close relationship with the Al-Shabaab because they share the same ideology. So, but how do we then bring our people as Africa and we sit on a round table as Africa and benchmark from what has been happening, learn lessons, create ways of interconnection and also collaboration to ensure that we have a common voice? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. That's very detailed. I want to ask Michael. Michael, looking at, he talked about ideology, he talked about the narrative, that the narrative is the same. Okay? I want you to look at Boko Haram, for instance, in Nigeria, and groups such as Al Shabaab in the, I think, East Africa. Why? What is it that they have, the commonality that is making it almost unending?
Thank you so much. And let me pick it from this dimension. I've been privileged to have met with individuals of repute, quote and unquote, who are influencers of decisions in their own regards. And not too long ago, we saw the outburst about the Minister of Communications in Nigeria, that's I think Dr. Isa Pantami, about his previous comments and his sympathetic approach to some of these organizations. And it is important that we know that these people, they have voices in their communities. And let me draw this example. I've been privileged to have anchored some conversations in the past as it relates to human rights abuse, particularly to I mean, what do you call it, female genital mutilation, as big and as small as it may be. And you see someone who has gone as far as Harvard, as far as Oxford to study, still justifying that, okay, female genital mutilation is something that is culturally or perhaps religious wise, it is acceptable, and this more like a norm. And this person I'm talking about is a scholar, I mean, a professor for that matter. Yes, a professor and someone who has risen to the post of a judge in, I mean, I think a judge, yes, in a court. And when you look at all of these, they are shapers of opinions in their own community. So whoever or any group of individuals that these people they meet, they encounter, they preach to, they have this strong domination over them. And I think it's one of the bases, it's one of the underlying factors why we have been dealing with terrorism. We have been fighting Boko Haram, we have been fighting ISWAP, we have been fighting Al Shabaab, and of course the global terror communities. We have been dealing, they have been putting the world on sleepless night. And we can't continue to shy away from this reality. Even within our own space here, we have seen all the outcry. Okay, label these bandits, we call them without nomenclature bandits, but anyone who takes the life of people at will, who derives pleasure in destroying people, destroying environment, destroying human society, they are nothing but criminal. And I think it is unacceptable for us to be romancing their names or telling them, I mean, putting them in a coloration that will not make the society see them as that are terror or that are thorns on our flesh. So I want to say this by, I want to conclude my position on that by saying I think a lot of people subscribe, quote and unquote, to the ideology of these people, and they are influencers of decisions in their respective communities, whether cultural or religious communities, and which is one of the reasons why should I say we continue to battle with all of these happenings in our society. But I think it is worthy of note that we should appreciate those who are condemning all of these efforts, not minding how they are being vilified, not minding how they are being condemned in the society. Even some, we can see what is happening in Afghanistan. The media personnel, those who subscribe to other faiths, how they are being dealt with. I think the world should come to a point that we need to forget religion. We need to forget our cultural affiliation, and let us respect ourselves on the basis of the fact that we are humans first before any other thing. If you respect the human dignity in me, if I respect the human dignity in you, there wouldn't be need for all of these things. And I think all of us, whether young or old, irrespective of the faith we may profess, we have a role to play in ensuring that we end, or rather we subdue the efforts, the unacceptable mayhem that these people are unleashing on human society on daily basis. So let me stop with that for now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michael. Perez, Sadat talked about coexisting with these groups, possibility of coexisting with these groups. Now, you are a Nigerian and you have seen, I believe, I heard somebody saying that Boko Haram has been existing in Nigeria in the last 12 years. And Nigerians seem to have been fighting and battling and have been failing, even though sometimes the government will say we have technically defeated them. But it seemed to have been, more political than fact. So I want you to consider the possibility of coexisting with such group. Is it possible?
Okay, thank you. To begin with, I was born in the northern part of Nigeria. I schooled in the north.
Oh, that's
My
good.
parent, my family are still in the north now, so I think I'm an authority talking about Boko Haram and so many things like that. And Boko Haram as a group has been within us even prior to 2009. You know, every academic findings or writings about Boko Haram will tell you that the group started in 2009 and stuff like that. But then you find out that these guys have been operating a long time before 2009. And so they've been living within us, they've been recruiting themselves, they've been doing indoctrination and so many other things. However, a group that wants to coexist in a sane society must present sane ideologies. And any group that does not present sane ideologies or policies that will further the development of a society should not and cannot coexist with the society. And no matter what people say, the fact that groups like Taliban have been in power before, and then there are people who are even sympathetic to the cause of the Taliban. While we are talking about those who are running away from the Taliban in Afghanistan, there's a bulk that there's a large population of Afghans who think that these guys are the best people for them and that they can actually coexist with them. The same thing with Al Shabaab, the same thing with ISIS in Syria and in Iraq. At the height of the ISIS probe issue years ago, there were people who were not apologetic about what those guys were doing. That even some people from the West traveled down to those places to join them. And so you see, it is the sympathy that some of us, like Nigerians, have for these groups that gives them some motivation to continue to exist. And so like I said it from the beginning, if any group wants to coexist with us, if any group wants to coexist with a sane society, they must present sane ideologies. And so for whoever thinks that a group like Boko Haram can coexist, then they are part of them. They are part of them, whether you're a southerner, whether you are from the north or from anywhere, they are part of them. Until those in power, until those in leadership, those with influence condemn the act of Boko Haram and go after them with brutal force, these guys will continue to exist and even do those major businesses. That look at Nigeria, Africa, Nigeria, West Africa, has perhaps the most the most porous border in the world. In fact, you find out in Nigeria, in African countries, especially in West Africa, that there is no clear markings of a border between one country and another. And so there is the possibility of people jumping from Borno to Chad, Niger to Katsina, Sokoto to Niger, and then Cameroon to Calabar, and so many other things. These guys are within us. And the fact that people said they cannot, they've been coexisting with us, they've been living with us, but then as policymakers, people must make changes, they must make policies that should drive these guys out. And that is why so many times I'm still baffled and surprised about what is really happening in Sambisa Forest. What is the size of that place? And then much of our resources has been invested, has been put into that place. And those guys continue to do what they do with boldness. And so what you said is a possibility, but again, should not be a possibility in a sane world, in a sane society. Thank you.
Okay, Perez. Perez doesn't seem to agree that we can coexist with them. Okay. even me, I think it might be difficult. You see, another thing is, even if you are willing to live with them, are they willing to accept you? Like for instance, I've been seeing news in recent time in Nigeria that they want to ban mannequin in mannequin in a city like Kano.
It is banned
You
already.
know, so and they will destroy beer bottles, people's business. Yet Nigeria receive a lot of tax, especially from the south, from beer and alcoholic companies. But these states they still share from the money. Yet they are saying they want to ban the activities of people that are selling beers in their state. So it somehow it can make somebody make your head. It can mess with your head sometimes. Anyway, we come back to that. Let me ask Tunde a question. The use of brutal force against this kind of groups. Do you think it has worked? If no, what do you think we can do?
Well, obviously, from what we have been seeing all around the world, there is this saying that said that war cannot solve any problem. It is only dialogue that has been tested to be the best in whatsoever situation like this that we find ourselves as humans. So, having said that, like the earlier question that you posed to Perez, in issue of if we can be able to coexist with this kind of people who are known to be terrorists. Yes, I would say it has to be it has to do with issue of constitutionality, the way our constitution is structured. In the first place, I will say that they said prevention is better than cure. So, having said that, what did our government put in place in the first place to prevent these things? Maybe through the organs of the constitution or through parliament to make sure that things like this do not come into existence in the first place. So, and the cost of curing this is almost like eternal cost in curing the works of terrorists. So, having said that, I will say that indeed there are a whole lot that we need to do as a continent, as a country, and as a democratic society in trying to make sure that uh, these should be brought to halt. Now, if Americans spent over 20 years in Afghanistan trying to bring the Taliban's to their halt. And they could not. After 20 years, all they could do is to withdraw their soldiers, even with the support of the Great Britains and the likes of international organizations like NATO, to help them make sure that they look for a way to either crush Taliban and build a democratic society. Still, in building the democratic society, you cannot build a society that is foreign for a domestic people. What I mean by that is that as Nigerians, you cannot bring American soldiers or American concepts to bear in Nigeria and you want it to be fruitful after the demise of those people, after they must have left. So I think that what the international community should be doing is that they should try to be able to build the home-based solutions, even if they want to find any solution on behalf of these nations that are faced by terror attack. So they should try to build a kind of domestic solutions among the countrymen and women who will be able to take up these responsibilities through their leadership, through their army and the likes. And the place of dialogue should not be taken out of the conversation. Like in Nigeria now, if you say that all government said they can do to make sure that terror in Nigeria come to an halt is to keep attacking Sambisa forest, I will tell you that terrorism has many faces. So terrorism can manifest in so many faces within our religious settings, within our cultural settings. They have all different faces of which we cannot tackle them facing one direction. So what that means is that we should be able to deliberately provide a means of dialogue for these people and try to, I will not say compel now, and try to plead with them or to lure them or to lobby them into that kind of plan. Take, for instance, the issue of Niger Delta militants in the days of President Goodluck Jonathan in Nigeria. They were so destructive that they were bombing oil pipelines, kidnapping people, kidnapping expatriates. But then when, in the era of President Yaradua now, that led to that of Goodluck Jonathan. So what Yaradua did immediately he got to office is to call his vice, who happens to be Jonathan, who is part and parcel of the Niger Delta, and said, what can we do? And they came up with an amnesty, a very robust amnesty for these people. Other people have also, at one time or the other, said that granting amnesty to terrorists or dialogue with terrorists may not be the ultimate solution, but to a certain extent, I believe that it can create a kind of enabling environment and a peaceful coexistence on a long run. So, Jonathan, the administration of Yaradua have to, like, okay, this is an amnesty for you people. If you people should do A, B, and Z, and you allow peace to reign, these are the things that we are going to do. And not only that, promising those things, you build on infrastructural materials, you build on human capacity, you build on the production of the governance. You make sure that the society is good enough and livable enough for people to live and to do their business. By so doing, with time, these terrorists will have a sense of belonging that they belong to a particular place. So dialogue, as far as I'm concerned, will be the utmost solution, and which a good leadership, a good democratic governance is supposed to have in place. And as they are designing, they should not design it in isolation. They should be able to factor in so many civil society organizations and traditional individuals who can give insights into how they can go about this. And it should not be designed for a temporary reason. It should be designed for a medium, long term, and short term basis, so that in the end we can have a lasting peace. But above all, to conclude with this segment, I will say that we cannot completely strike out terrorism from the planet Earth, because terrorism has been part of human being right from the time immemorial. Even biblically, it has been since the days of Cain and Abel. Cain have to terrorize his brother because of one thing or the other. Resource allocation, resource sharing, resource control, all of these things, people want to flex those and to show power that they hold sway here or there. So we should have at the back of our mind that we can only reduce the level, the tempo of terrorism. We cannot crash it completely. What happens and what is happening in Afghanistan now is telling us that terrorism cannot go completely in any nation or from the global space.
Okay, that's a loaded viewpoint there, and I am tempted to comment, but I will not. Okay, because anyway, let me not comment. Let me stay by not commenting. But I'm really tempted. Let me ask Zadat. When you look at, you see, for me personally, I think what is sustaining these groups is the ideology. It's not the arms, it's not the guns, it's not the force. It is the ideology, which means if you kill this one, two others will stand up. You know why? Because it is affiliated to a religion. We can lie to ourselves and pretend about it, okay? But I'm not the type who pretends about what my opinion, you know. So, and it's okay if you disagree with it. Because if somebody say you are going to heaven when you do this, an average religious person will do it because they believe in it. Okay, maybe there may be some other benefits. There may be some other motivations. You understand? But from what I have seen personally, I think it is perhaps the ideology. Look at, for instance, and I'm coming to my question to you, Sadat. Sorry for me making so much statements. Look at the fact that the Afghan soldiers or Afghan security force, it's like multiplied by 10 of this Taliban group. Yet, would you say they conquered them or they surrendered because they buy their idea? That's my question. Do you think these people surrendered willingly because they supported the ideology of the Taliban, or they were conquered by war? But note that they say I learned that they enter Kabul without fighting a single battle.
Thank you so much. I was reading news and I saw the former president saying that he ran away to rescue his life, and that marked a question in my mind, and I was asking myself, why did he run away? So if those individuals entered Kabul without firing a single bullet, what does that indicate? One, it indicates coexistence. But two, it also indicates ideology. Can we assume that all the masses, all the populace in that community, in that town, were in tandem with the ideology? And if they were in tandem with their ideology, why is it that other people ran away to the airport to go with the Americans? So, to me, I think I want to drive the conversation back to with the examples of South Sudan. When the Americans and the other people during George Bush Walker Jr. were crafting the secession part of Sudan, a bigger Sudan, to having South and North, the write-ups, the Constitution of South Sudan says that the Dinkas will always take the presidency, the Nuers will always take the vice, and remember, this is a community that has over 60 tribes, and you're only prioritizing only 2 tribes. What does that mean? It means inequalities in resource sharing, and in that country will never have peace. Not until they unpack and they zero down to, touching base to whatever inequalities that are created by the different policies and laws to have mutual and equal benefit of every South Sudan. The same applies to the terrorism fraternity. When you come to the different Islamic states and Africa, you realize that there are those so-called special groups and tribes that tend to, benefit in the expense of the other bigger majority. And at the end of the day, this causes a scuffle. And at the end of the day, we realize that we have different terror groups that emanate as a result of inequalities. Then when you look at the Taliban, they believe so much into their system. They believe, actually, Taliban is a tribe, and they believe in monarchism. And today, America is introducing democracy, which to them, they see it as something trying to destroy their belief and culture. And remember, in Afghanistan, Taliban is not the only tribe. But because other tribes have been so patient with what the system is introducing to them, and so inferior to the extent they've been surrendering themselves as subjects to the Taliban, they've been having a little peace, that so-called surface peace. Like what is happening in Taliban is happening in Africa. We have latent peace. Latent whereby you realize that the country is peaceful, but when you zero down to the issues of individual conversation, you find that people are not peaceful, people are not in consent with what is happening, and they're only waiting for that day to spark a bullet. But for us, on the surface we say maybe this, so the country so and so it is peaceful, the country so and so is peaceful. People are not peaceful simply because of the inequalities that have been introduced right from way back, from the cultural setups and also the colonialism in Africa here. So, and the religious context, because three things that drive terrorism across the globe, that is religion, culture, and colonization. So if we can unpack those things, because the colonialists did some treaties in the interest of, in their interest actually, not in the interest of Africans. Remember, for example, let me give you an example. We have DRC Congo, over 100 tribes cocooned into one bigger country called DRC, and you're forcing them to believe in one ideology. Yet some of the groups there, they believe totally differently. Some of them don't even want to dress up, to put on clothes. And you need millions of years to tell them that the world has developed, you need to put on clothes. So with such people under one basket, how are you going to expect them to believe in you? The concept of terrorism has nothing to do with the tribes and what, but it is all about the idea. Kill 10 Christians, you're
So that I think your network is misbehaving now. And I was really enjoying the conversation.
okay. Can you get me now?
Okay, yes.
I guess Uganda
Yeah.
was happening to him too.
Can you get me?
Yes, yeah. Please quickly round up.
Yes, if you get me, let me finalize.
Yeah.
Uh, I okay. I was saying that as the narrative is, for example, for the Muslim fraternity, they go tell the young people that if you kill 10 Christians, if you kill non-believers and the infidels, you're going to heaven direct. Like killed many. And who is there in heaven that comes back to tell us that they've been to heaven because they killed? I think it is something we need to learn, that if they are using the Quran, how can we get well conversant with the Quran and we also counter that narrative? Because they hinge their preaching on the Quran. If they are hinging their preaching on the Bible, like in Uganda, Kiwetere, used the Bible to kill masses of people. So can we read and get well conversant with the Bible and tell the populace, say, no, God needs this. God needs this. And we can read the same verses for them. They just read, they just decontextualize. Actually, they pick out a few statements and use them because many of the people don't understand their religion and they lure them into the terror activities. Even the cultures. People tell you that we are supposed to exist as one culture. Who told you that you're supposed to exist as one culture when God created different cultures? How can we leverage on that preaching to ensure that we also counter the narrative? Like my brother said, it is only the dialogue that is going to bring peace and curb down the concept of terrorism. But we can't also just go on a forefront and confront them with bullets and we think we are solving the question. We are just breeding more war and more and more fightings. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. You see, I think this is a very rich discussion that we are having. And Michael, please, this is just a note. I want you to please, if possible, let's work out on how we can talk about, arrange maybe a sort of uh, like academic discussion on the implications of colonialism in Africa. Now, we are not going to be hating on the West, but we just want to, talk about those experiences. It could be lessons there could be lessons learned. There could be, it could be a form of debate. I don't know if some people are interested in such discussions. Michael, maybe we can work on that. Now, I have two more questions here. After these two more questions, I mean, these two questions, then individually we can just say one or two things if in case I have not asked something you are prepared to say. So one goes to Perez, one goes to Michael. And who should I take first? Okay, let me take Michael first. Michael, when you look at self governance beyond religious influence, do you think it is possible in Africa?
Come again?
Do you see self governance without, I mean, we're beyond the influence of religion? Do you see that in Africa?
It is somewhat difficult, and I am trying to look at it even from the democracy that we are adopting from the West, because when we look at it holistically, there is still we still have element of religion, quote and unquote, in the Western style of democracy, as it were. And this has always been my argument everywhere I went, and which is um, democracy has its own peculiarity. I mean, democracy as a style of government should put into consideration the peculiarity of people, and I think that is what we have refused to understand or to note in Africa. We have just accepted everything that has been bequeathed on us, hook, line, and sinker, without necessarily putting into consideration what we consider good for us, what we consider not good for us. And I think I've once said it here. Tanzania happens to be the only country, perhaps in Africa, that is tilting towards that direction of saying, okay, we want to have our own unique lifestyle, putting into consideration, okay, the ethnic and the religious formation of such a society. So it will be totally impossible if we say we want to remove the element of religion, because whether we like it or not, religion is part of, let me say, the foundation on which society, quote and unquote, is built upon. And what should not be of importance to us is that what are those things that are inherent in our religious, in our cultural lifestyle, that is not acceptable, as it were. For example, I mean, this issue of because we still have such a religion that believes that, okay, some things should be this way, some things should be that way. I may not be able to lay hold of some examples now, but what I'm trying to say in essence is that any component of our religious and cultural lifestyle that is not acceptable, that does not respect human dignity, that does not respect I mean, that does not respect human rights. Meanwhile, human right is one of the components of democracy, as it were. So all of this should be sieved, should be juxtaposed. And I still want to say this, that there are, I mean, I'm a Yoruba man. Yes, I'm a man, and there are some things that I still so much cherish in our culture, that most especially as it relates to societal and moral formation. I'm not saying all of these are totally correct, but there are some things that if we add to our democracy, it will make us better, I mean, than we are at the moment, not necessarily accepting everything that is being given to us or that we are being taught in school. So it's more like an appeal, or I mean, a passionate appeal, if we want to have this our society stabilized. So let us ask ourselves some critical questions. What are those things good for us? What are those things we have considered harmful to us as human, I mean, as Africans? Let us remove all of these and apply those ones we have considered good, and then I see our society, Africa as a continent, moving forward. And let me conclude by saying that this has been the argument of the founding fathers of Africa, the likes of Nyerere, the likes of Kwame Nkrumah, and all host of them, that let us Africanize our own style of democracy so that we can move forward, and then we can address issues as it relates to us as Africans. Thank you.
Okay, Michael, thank you. So my last question goes to Perez. Uh, Africans seem to be more feudalist and monarchs than democrats. Do you think this might have been influencing our governance system in Nigeria? I mean, in Africa generally. Perez.
Okay, okay, thank you. You see, Africa was developing at its own pace before the coming of the Europeans, and history is replete with examples of empires and kingdoms and governments that existed before the coming of the white men into Africa. We had centralized systems, we had non-centralized systems, and we had systems of administration, systems of politics, systems of governance before the white man came. Do you understand? And so we had systems that were work in progress, systems that were so advanced that even the Europeans, when they came into Africa, they were amazed with what story of the Ghana Empire, the Mali Empire, the Songhai Empire. If you come to Nigeria, we had the Oyo Empire, the Hausa Fulani Empire, the Borno Empire. All of these were working empires. All of these were working kingdoms. They were working governments. They were working. Look at the sophisticated way the Oyo Empire was formulated. Do you understand? All these things were working. It wasn't like it was the coming of the white man, of Europeans, that brought us out of. Do you understand? And so, like you rightly said, the monarchical system, the feudal system, were all in place, and these things were working. And so when the white man came, they came in three ways. They came as explorers, they came as missionaries, they came as merchants. And at that point, the African system began to destabilize, it began to fall. And then we lost out. And then you could see even during colonialism, in the French territories, especially in Senegal, in Dakar, you could see how the French imposed their way of life on the Africans. And so at that point, all of these things were eroded, the feudal system, the monarchical system. I remember when I started, I said we needed African solutions to African problems. If we do not source for African solutions to African problems, we'll continue to dance around the vicious circle that has put us in the state we are at today, dependency and underdevelopment. And so, why have we come together as a government? Every government comes together to make a better life for its citizens. And if we find those systems that will work for us, whether they are monarchical, whether they are feudal, whether they are whatever name you call it, then why not go for them? Democracy is good. Democracy is also bad. And we have seen in systems, for example, in Asia, in China, and so on, where even authoritarianism has worked for them. And so every society has its own peculiar system of administration until we go back to the drawing board and emancipate ourselves from those mental slaveries, until we ask ourselves very, very hard questions, uncomfortable questions, we will continue to be in this state. So whether it is feudal, whether it's monarchical, well, by whatever name it may be called, Africans must come back. But again, we must also talk about the peculiarity of our African systems. For example, Nigeria as a system, if we want to talk about it, we might not finish today. That is a topic for another day. We have different nationalities, different systems put together under Nigeria is not a nation. I cannot call Nigeria a nation. And so these are some of the problems we have. People coming from different backgrounds. I'm sorry, if you go back to the south part of this nation, pre-colonial, in the pre-colonial era, every of them had their own systems. And these are people who have been put in the same state now under Nigeria. We had the Bibio, we had the Ijaw, we had the Sekiri, we had the Calabar, we had the Oron. All of these people had their own different systems of administration. Everybody to his own farm, everybody to his own system. And so, but we've all been put together. And the same thing happens or has happened in several African countries where different nationalities have been put together to work under the same umbrella. And that is where conflict arises. And so, we must look for African solutions to our problems. Leadership must work for us. We must come to a round table. The round table where Africa was partitioned in the Berlin Conference, we must form our own round table. Do you understand? We must talk to ourselves. We must believe in African ways. We must believe in African systems. No matter what you want to say about dictatorial systems in some places like China and Russia, even those Some of them might say they are big parties. It has worked for them. I'm not here to tell you that authoritarianism is good. No. But again, every society has a peculiar system of administration that works for them. Africans must come to access. You see all this parliamentary system, all those things, we had them even before the coming of Europeans. And so we have to sit back and look for a good system that is for us. But while I round up, how do we even look for a good system for a country like Nigeria, where everybody is speaking different things, everybody's brain is going to a different direction? That is one of the problems that we have. But as time goes on, as time permits, if we do not want a breakdown of law and order, if we do not want anarchy for states to fail, if we do not want to fail states, we must ask ourselves these hard questions and look for African solutions, African systems peculiar to us to solve our problems. We have so many resources here, but we are lacking behind. And so that's one of the things we need to do. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Perez. You are very articulate. And but the question is this: when you look at some of these African systems that we had, many of them are rooted in patriarchy system, which is in itself very oppressive. It is only the old men that make decisions. I'm an Ekiti man, okay? As an Ekiti man, it is the oldest man, the man of the house, is the one that is like the god. He's like he makes command. And that's why I see an average Nigerian or an average Ekiti man gives command. They expect you to just follow whatever they say because our parents are like that. Our parents, they don't consider your opinion. They just say whatever it is they think you should do. And so bringing that to society, a whole society, you find out that even in Nigeria, for instance, it is not even only in Nigeria, in many African countries, it is difficult for you to argue that we are practicing a democracy. A democracy where the government in power might decide not to obey the law or even a judgment from the court. What kind of democracies are that? Anyway, those are discussions for another day, and I really I have enjoyed it, and I want to hope that every one of us have had some fun. We will be meeting again. I'd like to see these faces again and look for how we can bring in some women. Please do bring in women so that we don't appear like we are patriarchy on this platform. Please. I was talking to Michael earlier, yesterday, when he told me that somebody said it is, how can we have this kind of setting where there are no women uh, on the panelists? And I said, wow, that is really terrible. And I was blaming him actually. It was
And
yeah.
I think if you permit me to just say something on that, it's a challenge because we have many of our young ladies who are bright, who are brilliant, and when it comes to conversations of this nature, they can actually discuss under the roof. But when it comes to public domain, you see them withdraw one after the other, and I think it's one of the reasons we still have poor women representation across political spaces. It's not just enough to conceive the idea. It's not just enough to want to express your view. But your view is of no value when it's lying inside your belly alone. And I'm challenging, or rather encouraging, our young women, our ladies. You are mother. You are mothers, of course, to be, and perhaps you are mothers already. It's fine. But we just need you to come out of that your cover and exercise that courage. Exercise your opinion and let the human society learn from those things you are endowed with. And let me just put it at that. And if Mr. Paul will permit me, because I can see that my network is just doing me anyhow, just to possibly make my remarks before the thing disappears. I think I've been privileged to have participated in some discussions around peace in the West African region, and just like the US government, and I think I subscribe totally to the position of President Joe Biden about the withdrawal of American troops in Afghanistan. I think 20 years is too long a time for a nation to invest such amount of money to building institutions, building their military, and of course supporting over 300,000 Afghanistan soldiers. And at the end of the day, the thing was like effort in futility. Does it mean that the military system or the military hierarchies in America, in Afghanistan, as it were, also they are pitching tent with the Taliban. So these are questions I think we need to estray. And coming to Africa, the EU, I participated in one meeting where young people from within the West African sub-region was invited. And the EU, we call it the African Peace Facility. And between 2009 and 2019, the EU government made us understand that they have spent over 2.7 billion euros in stabilizing, on 6 states, 8 states, 8 countries within the West Africa in stabilizing peace, managing conflict, and all of this. And we need to ask ourselves the question: what is it that our governments across the states are doing in actually curtailing all of this? Just imagine if such amount has not been spent, and that is the European Union alone. What of the American government? What of other global blocs? So just imagine if such amount of money have not been spent. It therefore means that Africa may possibly by now be a shadow of itself. And we are just making this passionate appeal. This money are there too much. Of course, we know that peace is expensive. Equally, war is more expensive. But I believe we can spend money on other things other than fighting war. Even see the one in Nigeria that I know we can possibly not account for how much Nigerian government they spend on insurgents. So I think this is more like a moral appeal to all of us, irrespective of the class or the cluster we belong. I think enough of all of this war, enough of all of this crisis. We can use all of this money to better the lot of human society and particularly Africans. Thank you so much.
Okay, Michael, thank you for that submission. Okay, I think Perez was having some discussion there. Anyway, today you want to have your own submission, and I want to say thank you to Iemera, who has commended me for saying we need more women. We need women on this platform. Thank you very much. I appreciate the comment. Tunde, what's your submission?
All right. Let me first start on the note of appreciation that you found it worthy that should be part of this discussion. Actually, you agree with me that it has been a robust conversation, and we know that it will also usher us into other future conversation as it affects Africans, and not only African alone, but the entire global space. So let me quickly remark as I conclude in the following ways that one, if African countries are truly independent, we said that we are truly independent as African countries, this is the time in our lifetime to take that independence to ourselves and truly do the things that we needed to do as Africans without relying on other continents, most especially the Western world, to help us. So what happens in Afghanistan simply tells us that there is no way we can be leaning on the help of other countries for our survival. No matter how long it may be, there will be a time within that space that they'll be tired and they want to withdraw their help. Although we also understand that most of this help that the Western world and some of the Middle East and Asian continents are throwing towards Africa is not only for the purpose of loving African alone, is because they have some interest in Africa in terms of our resources and our leadership. So our leadership must rise to the occasion to make sure that they put in place the necessary things they need to put in place to help the African and the Africans to emerge in future, to survive and to sustain themselves. Again, we should also try to learn that today we see in Afghanistan that a democratic governance is being taken over by tanks and mortars. That is not only the only type of terror attack that we have. We have a lot of them all across our continent in different formations. Electoral malpractices is one of them. Not giving independence to the judiciary to run the space very well and interpret laws the way it should be is one of the terrible attacks that we are facing as Africans. And we have so many other ones like the invasion of other countries. You know that in Africa too, the the big brothers are also playing some kind of role that they're also learning from the Western world, like US and the Great Britain. When issues happen within the African sub-region, maybe in the West, East, and South, or in the continent at large, you see the big brothers like the likes of Nigeria, South Africa, Kenya, Egypt, they'll be rising to also quickly poke nose into the affairs of independent sovereignties. So we should also learn that invading other independent countries, it should have limits. It should not be that we go to other countries to be building their army, to be building their health sector, to be building their democracies. Though it helps in terms of peace and reconciliation, but then it should have limitations because they are also sovereignty and independent nations of their own. On the last note, we also have to say that I think the biggest project of our time, the biggest project of our lifetime as Africans is the African project. So we should do everything possible to invest in Africa as young people, as fathers, as youth. We should try as much as possible to invest in Africa, invest in our families, because that is the genesis of everything that we are talking about. So, and I pray that God Almighty helps all of us. And thank you once again for inviting me to this conversation. And I hope to be part of this when next you call upon me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tunde. You're welcome. Now, Sadat, you're muted. You're muted.
Oh, sorry. Thank you so much. First and foremost, I would love to appreciate the conveners of this wonderful platform that gives us an insight on very many issues that uh, foster Africa's development. And I would love also to appreciate my fellow panelists for having been a great resource to this conversation. But as well, I want to add my voice onto someone who asked for gender balance. So there is no way you can discuss issues of peace, of prevention and counter-violence extremism, minus having representation of genders, because at the end of the day, we are all affected equally, but more so the women. So I would love to see going forward such conversation have a blending of women also giving their perspective into this bigger conversation. And as well, I would like to thank whoever has been following us online. But my last comment on this is, I think it is a high time for Africa to appreciate the different kind of dimensions, and also to really put our heads and efforts together to ensure that we harness the potentials we have into productivity. For example, Africa has a culture that has been there for long, that has harnessed peace, and we have systems in Nigeria, in Uganda. The different tribes have systems of peace building and reconciliation that we need to harness and ensure that we inform the present day peace building processes and efforts. Lastly, I want to let the world know that uh, we need to strengthen the social bonds, because from our different interests and the small setups, we see that the reason as to why terrorism is escalating is because people no longer have the social bonding, the neighborhood watch. Because in Uganda and in Africa today, it's a country where someone cooks food and pours the leftovers, yet the neighbor hasn't eaten. So how can we then build the social bonds within our societies, within our communities, within our nations, if we don't have Then two, the self-advancement. The first self-advancement is key, that young people and the entire world need to accept the concept of tolerance. It is not that whatever we are going to push forward, we need to fight, we need to rub shoulders, but we need to tolerate and coexist. Then lastly, we need to also look at the I've said social bonds, self-advancement, and then we need to also appreciate, like my
Sadat, I think
brother
your
said,
network is
that
breaking now.
Africa has grown. The reason as to why South Africans are still fighting is because of the concept of structural violence.
Sadat, I think we cannot hear you anymore. Your network is breaking. Let's go to Adekunle. Just
Okay, thank you very much. It's been a joy to be here today. Like, I really enjoyed the conversation. And so, what is the essence of what we are doing today? We want to educate ourselves. We want to show to the world, to Africans, to Nigerians, by extension, that the world is a global village, and that anything can happen here at any time. And so, it is in this light that we need a lot of public enlightenment, public education, political education, for people to know that there are individual actions, there are group actions, there are state and non-state actions that can cause chaos on a global scale, on a local scale, on a domestic scale, and as such, we must be careful with what we do. One very important thing is the politicization of terrorism in Nigeria, in the world. If we take Afghanistan, for example, as we are here discussing about the effect of what it will be on Africa and the world over, countries of the world are taking sides, notwithstanding the fact that their lives are at stake. And so that is one of the biggest problems that we have in the world today. There will be issues. For example, look at Syria. Look at the mass destruction that happened in Syria. The world powers could not come to a conclusion. They could not come to a unit. There was no unity of purpose as to what should happen in Syria, as to what should happen in Yemen, as to what should happen in Libya, as to what should happen in South Sudan. That is the problem we have. One of the world power will go this way, the other world power will go that way, and nobody seems to care about the loss of lives and properties. Not to forget that every government, whether domestic or international, the first thing that you must do is to safeguard the lives and properties of your citizens. Social contract theorists like John Locke, Rousseau, Thomas they were in unison. They said that the reason for which people come together to form a government, to live, to forfeit their individual liberty, is so that the government for which they have voted for or for which they constituted must protect their lives. So in Nigeria, for example, we still have the politicization of this of corruption, of the Boko Haram insurgency himself. And the UN security chief was speaking about 2 days ago at the UN assembly, and he was talking about Africa. Issues were happening in Afghanistan. He kept on talking about Africa. He said that the world terror is moving to Africa gradually. He talked about Nigeria and how the Islamic State in West Africa is now taking over Nigeria. In recent times, we've been hearing that Boko Haram people have been surrendering. Whether it is true or not, there is an influence that ISWAP has on them, and then they are taking over from them, continuing from where they stopped. And so it is not the time to politicize terrorism. It is not the time to politicize insurgency. It is time for action. It is time to stand up to this social norm that can swallow a whole country, that can deal with everything. Look at infrastructure that were destroyed in Syria. Look at what has happened in Yemen. And so wherever conflict happens, it doesn't leave them the same way it met them. Libya was on a path to development before the invasion, before Gaddafi was killed. Look at what Libya is today. That is where they sell humans for trafficking. And so we must learn lessons from every individual action of leaders. We must learn lessons from every action of groups, state and non-state actors. We must learn lessons from international organizations. We must learn lessons from nations. We must continue to talk to ourselves. We must have a round table and continue to deliberate on the way forward. Like I've been hammering since morning, we must look for African solutions to African problems. And then we must also practice the policy of pacification. In as much as terrorism is about conflict, about war, we must also find a way to pacify them. We must look for diplomatic means to look for a way to call these people together. At the heart of the Iranian conflict and the Iranian nuclear deal that was done, so many people said Obama did bad, he did this, and that. But he was just looking for a peaceful way to end all of this instead of resorting to conflict. And so Nigerians, we must learn. And that is where leadership comes. Like everybody has talked about leadership today. Tunde talked about leadership, everybody. What type of leadership do we have in Nigeria? Can we sleep with our eyes closed? And not to forget that this conflict started in the northern part of Nigeria. Today, it has shifted to the east. Now they call them unknown gunmen in the east. They call them bandits in the northwest. They call them terrorists in the northeast. They call them what they call them in the southwest now. They call them gunmen. And so you can imagine, like permit me to say, like we say in Yoruba, can everybody. Do you understand? And that is where it is going. It will transcend beyond borders. It will go to every part of Africa if we do not look for solutions to our problems. Look at the way the president of Chad was killed. And those are the things that are supposed to call us to our senses, that insurgency, terrorism is not what we should just play about. Corruption, poverty, all of these things are what we need to dissect for us to even fight corruption. Those are conversations for another day. Because there's no way we want to even fight corruption, insurgency without fighting corruption, without fighting what do they call it? What did I say now? Without fighting poverty. All of these things are what motivate people to go into all of these things. We must improve the quality of our education. We must empower women. We must empower those genders. We must empower everybody. If I have a mind of my own, you can.
Okay, I think Nigeria may have already caught up with Perez now. Anyway, thank you very much, guys. It has been educative. It has been fun for me. I love it. I've had fun. So thank you very, very much. We will be here again next weekend. Thank you very much, everyone. Michael and Sagas from Uganda. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.